I'm Dr. Virgie Bright Ellington, and welcome to another episode of What Would Dr. Virgie Do? Where we feature the most outrageous, crazy stories of folks living in the United States who've been cost victims of the US healthcare system. And where I show you what I would do and how I find and fix overcharges with the 3 steps of the only way to pay a medical bill. As I talk about in my book, What Your Doctor Wants You to Know to Crush Medical Debt. So there really is only one right way to pay a medical bill, and it's 3 simple steps. And if we run these 3 steps against every medical bill we come across, no matter how large or small, we can identify mistakes, protect ourselves from expensive healthcare overcharges, and potentially save hundreds to thousands to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on medical bills we don't owe. So, to protect ourselves, the 3 steps to apply to every medical bill we get is step 1, call the provider billing or patient accounts department for a real bill or something with CPT codes. CPT codes are to medical services what barcodes are to products in a store. Every medical service in the United States has its own unique CPT code. And just like products in a store, every product, even if it's the same product in just a different size or different amount, has its own unique CPT code. Barcodes in a store, each product has its own unique barcode. So same thing. And what you're going to say is, I want something, or actually quote, this is what you're going to say, quote, I need something with CPT codes. And the reason why you're going to have to call and ask for this is because, unfortunately, about 9 times out of 10, when you get a bill from a medical provider, it doesn't have CPT codes. There was a radio host I was talking to who said, CPT code should stand for can't pay this. And trust me, the real technical name for CPT is long, and it's just not necessary. It's just no. And I know people who are in the industry who've been in the insurance industry, for example, for decades, and they can't remember what CPT what CPT stands for anyway. But CPT codes, that's the only statement that's a real bill if it has CPT codes on it. You get something in the mail, it doesn't have CPT codes across the top and a series of 5 digits underneath next to the date and the services that you received, then it's not a real bill. You're going to call them and call them, the provider, their billing department, or their patient accounts department, and ask for one. Step 2, we're going to Google each CPT code to get the description of the service we're being charged for, the medical service that they say we received and they're billing us for. And while you're there Googling, also Google what Medicare pays for the service. Medicare is federal government insurance, health insurance. And basically what they pay is what's considered the very, very basic, bare, basic minimum retail price. Step 3, you're going to take that information that you got in step 2, total it up, meaning, let's say I give this example all the time. Let's say you went into the hospital, you had to go to the emergency room, you're having this horrible, horrible pain, you couldn't take it anymore. And you get there and you find out, oh my gosh, I have to have emergency hernia surgery. So you get home and you get a bill including what the care you received in the emergency room and the surgery. So all of the services that you received during your stay in the emergency room and in the hospital and in everything in between until you left the hospital, you're discharged. In this case, I use hospital examples a lot, but it could be something as simple as physical therapy visits or occupational therapy visits. And you're going to total everything up and say, okay, I know I was billed I use the hospital case and emergency hernia surgery example again. I know you guys charged me $10,000 for this emergency hernia repair operation. And in my case, in the research I've done for my case, I am, quote, willing and able to pay, unquote, whatever the number is. In my hypothetical case, I like to use example, I like to use $3,000. In step 3, that's the number, the price, the amount that you're going to ask for an interest-free payment plan that fits your budget. So if you, in our hypothetical example, $3,000 surgery, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can only squeeze maybe, $100 out of my budget. Well, then that's what you can afford. It may take you a few years, but that's what it takes. And so those are the 3 steps that we apply to every medical bill we get, no matter how big or small, just to make sure we're in the habit of checking to make sure that we're not being overcharged and we're not paying more than we owe. Before we get to that this week, I want to talk about something that is really, really troubling because it's becoming extremely commonplace, and that's where banks and hospitals in particular are going. And that is, just to cut to the chase, a headline from KHN. I always quote these folks, Kaiser Health News. They are really doing it. They're the nonprofit newsletter that features people that are victims of the US healthcare cost victims, I should say, of the American healthcare system. Well, they did great research pointing out what I've been seeing more and more, which is private equity getting into basically Wall Street bankers, big Wall Street ballers, getting into the business of people who can't afford medical care. And the title of this particular article that KHN published last week or the week before last is called How Banks and Hospitals Are Cashing In When Patients Can't Pay for Health Care. And what they're essentially saying is that there are companies that are getting tons, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars thrown at them to say, hey, you know what? We'll help you out. We'll make sure your patients, we'll take the patients who you've given their care, but they may or may not pay you. They may or may not be able to pay you. We'll take that off your hands. And essentially, meaning the banks, the private equity, corporations, Wall Street corporations, finance companies will say, okay, essentially they're creating a medical credit card within the hospital. So let's say you had a surgery and your bill was, let's try to keep the math simple. Let's not say it was surgery. Let's say it was an ER visit, and this particular hospital has an affiliated emergency department with it. So let's say you have $1,000 bill. These banks and these finance companies are saying, okay, we'll take it off your hands, hospital, and we'll split the difference. We're going to charge them 10% interest on the bill, and we'll split it with you, or we'll pay you and we'll get what we can on the back end from the patients. We'll get our money back by saying, okay, the interest rate from the patient is our responsibility and we can charge whatever we want. So this is really, really, really becoming commonplace to the degree that hospitals, this article in the KHN, Kaiser Health News, gave examples of hospitals that are turning over their patient accounts departments where, let's say you've already made an interest-free payment plan with the hospital. They will turn the account over to this financing company without your permission, essentially. And so they'll say, oh, you can, it's a lot of money to pay, you can pay this over time and that kind of thing. And that's how most people get, for lack of a better word, conned, frankly, get tricked into saying, yeah, this is a good thing for us. No, it isn't, because the interest rates is essentially credit cards. It's essentially credit, which means if you don't pay it, the bill completely 100% to zero within a certain number of time, length of time, you're going to pay more. The bill is going to grow and grow and grow because of the interest. So this is really disturbing, and we need to talk about it. What to do if you have a large bill, or it doesn't matter how large or small, but if you can't pay it off at the end of the month, that's a large bill. If you can't pay it off to zero after you've applied the 3 steps, that's a large bill. So the point is, never, ever, ever take your medical debt away from the people that provided the medical service for what they're charging you. So if, how's it go? You dance with the person that brought you, right? So if they provided the care, don't take that medical debt and take it to something else. Like, don't take out a loan, which is another trick that the recently more hospital and medical care systems are saying, hey, you can, the major credit card companies, I'm not going to mention any names, they're getting in on the action. They'll say, hey, just put it on us, or, this is a bill, or we'll front you for it. And, if you just pay it off in 2 years, you're good. Well, if you don't pay it off in 2 years, or whatever the time length is, the interest rate is astronomical and you're stuck. So keep your medical debt with the people who provided your care, with the system that provided your care. That will give you the most negotiation room and leeway to be able to say, if they come to you and say, look, this is an easy way to make sure that your bills are taken care of, your medical bills are taken care of. If you just put it on our revolving payment system and payment plan, you're going to say, no, that's not what I want to do. So if your debt, let's say you already worked out a payment plan with this facility, if they say your debt is being transferred to another account, do not agree to have the old account rolled over into the new account. For example, let's say in our hypothetical example, you had a ER visit and your bill is $1,000 and you made a payment plan with the facility, an interest-free monthly payment plan that's in your budget. And you get a notice saying, hey, we're rolling our services for all of our bills over to such and such Blakeney Blake Finance Company because they really care about you and your finances. Yeah, right. Anyway, so what you're going to have to do is call them and document and write. Unfortunately, it does take some time to sit. You have to carve out the time to make the phone call and put it in writing that you do not want your old account rolled over into the new account, that your agreement is stating, my agreement, I have an account with such and such ABC medical facility. I do not give permission for this old account to be rolled over to this new debtor, is basically what it is. I do not agree to have my old account rolled over into a new account. Now, any services that you get from that medical facility after, as of the date where they say they use a finance company to have you make your payments to, you have no choice. You have to use them. If that's their system, that's their system. But you don't have to use the old system. I'm sorry, you don't have to use the new system for your old debt that you have a financial agreement with. You have a financial agreement with an interest-free financial agreement with the facility prior to them selling their or outsourcing their billing department and their patient accounts department and services to a big giant credit card company. So I really wanted to make sure we talk about that. This is the way of the future, unfortunately. More and more tax exempt, I use that word, my Crush Medical Debt Nation members and citizens know that I use the word tax exempt instead of nonprofit, but more and more tax exempt and for-profit systems, medical care systems are going to outsourcing all of their patient accounts and billing services to companies that they either get paid from, they get flat out a fee to buy their services, and then the finance department, or sorry, the financial services company, credit company, they keep any money after that. They say, hey, hospital, we'll take on the risk, big ABC medical system, we'll take on the risk. If they can't pay the bill, we'll deal with it. We'll bill them the interest, we'll make our money in the back end, and you'll get a share of it. You'll get a share of the interest rate, or we'll pay you up front, something like that, where frankly, the hospital profits from people not being able to pay us, not being able to pay our medical bills off at the end of every month. And the big finance companies are realizing this is a multi-billion with the B dollar industry of making money off of people who cannot afford their medical care. So just be aware, we're not going to fall for it. We're Crush Medical Debt Nation members. We got this. So we're going to do our what Dr. Virgie would do of the week, which is look at the crazy bills people have posted online, or even the letters and emails I've gotten from folks of just craziness that is the US healthcare system, the American healthcare system, and figure out which of the 3 steps Dr. Virgie would do to crush the bill. Let's get started. So the first case I wanted to talk about is actually an email that I got from a journalist who said, Virgie, is it okay? She actually said, hi, good morning, Dr. Virgie. Is it okay if we pay our medical bills with credit cards? And okay, you said, Virgie, Dr. Virgie, it's not okay to pay your medical bills with credit cards. What about medical credit cards? And so I responded, good morning. There are 3 big problems with using medical credit cards to pay our bills, our medical bills. Number 1, because there's only one right way to pay a medical bill, we're skipping the first 2 steps if we put the bills on a medical credit card or using some kind of credit system, meaning we're paying it without getting a real accurate bill with CPT codes, right? CPT codes, AKA barcodes, like with products in a store. And therefore, we're likely, meaning 80 to 90% chance, being overcharged for services we received and or charges for services we did not receive, which is the first 2 steps are the only right way to pay a medical bill. We apply the first 2 steps, the only right way to pay a medical bill, and we're not going to get overcharged. We're going to catch overcharges. So what this means is that we're paying up to 300 to 500%, or even more than 1,000 to 2,000% more than what we should be when we put bills on our medical bills on credit, any kind of credit, whether it's a card, a loan, a revolving account, whatever you want to call it. When you put it on credit, we're going to end up paying more than what we should, up to 1,000 to 2,000% more than we should, because we skip. It's encouraging us to skip the critical 2 of the 3 steps of the only right way to pay a medical bill. Number 2, even though second big problem with putting medical bills on credit or using medical credit cards to pay for medical bills is, though, even though medical credit cards usually have an interest-free period of time, it's usually for a period of time. 2 years is on average. And recently there's a new company out that's saying they'll give it to you interest-free for 5 years. They'll help you make a payment plan over 5 years. So let's say you applied the first 3 steps. You didn't fall for it. They're encouraging you not to apply the first 2 steps. And let's say you did. And you're like, okay, well, I've gotten this is the correct number. I'm going to go ahead and put the bill the correct number. I went through all 3 steps. So step 3, I'm putting it on some form of credit that the medical system or provider encouraged me to use, or this is their system that they use. Now, the problem is that if you don't pay it off within that period of time, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, 1 year, when interest rates rise, like now in the current recessionary environment, we're going to need a little bit longer time to pay off the bill if things aren't going well for us economically, even if it's an interest-free period of time. If we miss a payment or can't keep up with the payments, we can no longer afford the number that we were able to before, the bill rises exponentially because of the interest rates that kick in. And they become unaffordable really, really quickly. And number 3, the third big problem with using credit to pay for medical bills is that when you have an interest-free payment plan with the facility that provided your care, that is a payment plan with a facility. It's not credit. It doesn't get credit, apologies. It doesn't get reported on your credit report. It doesn't get reported to credit agencies, meaning the credit agencies don't see that you have a payment plan with the facility, so it doesn't impact your credit rating. It doesn't impact your FICO score, which is important. Why do we need a good credit score? It's the times we live in. They look at many different industries, businesses, and folks look at your credit scores, your FICO scores, to determine if you're okay for them to give you a job. Many employers look at your credit scores depending on the sensitivity of the work that you're applying to do. They say, okay, you know, someone with a lot of debt, we don't think that they should be doing the kind of work that we need here. Or actually, auto insurance, your auto insurance rates go up. When your credit score goes down, your premium rate on your car insurance goes up. The other thing is, if you're going to rent an apartment, they look at credits. The landlords and apartment renters and apartment management companies look at your credit score to determine if they're going to rent an apartment to you. If they think your stuff is dicey, if your credit score is too low, they're like, nah, we don't want that kind of problem. So that's why it's important to protect your credit score and have a direct payment plan with the facility. I said this in an earlier show, you know, stay with dance with the person that brought you, right? Keep your debt with the people that provided the care. And medical debt, medical bills is being treated differently than regular consumer debt. And so you have these legal protections that keep you from essentially having your credit wrecked through no fault of your own, just because you got sick or injured. So I said to her, the journalist, I said, hope this helps. Grab me if I can answer any more questions. So just a reminder, please, please, please don't put your medical bills on credit. All right. Something else I saw that was interesting. Our next case was actually not a letter or an email to me. This was a letter to an editor down in Fort Myers, Florida, where a physician was talking about a study. You know, I always talk about Kaiser Health News. They did a study apparently, and this physician who lives in the Fort Myers area wrote to the newspaper and said, you know what, medical debt is a huge burden to patients. And we have a healthcare system. And he was quoting somebody who works with the awesome nonprofit RIP Medical Debt. He was quoting somebody who said, we have a healthcare system that's almost perfectly designed to create debt. And what I wanted to point out is that in the discussion, in his discussion of how many Americans end up with debt, medical debt, and why medical bills are the number one cause of the leading cause of debt, stress, and bankruptcy in the United States is that he says a lot of the debt is hidden, is hiding, because even though there are people, they say 100 million people, like a full 41% of adults in the United States have debt, medical debt, they say the number is actually higher. There was a study that came out a couple of years ago now that just said that $140 billion with a B of medical debt is owed by people living in the United States. And this gentleman, this physician actually was saying, you know, that's actually a smaller number than what's real. And why is that? He says, because many people borrow money from friends and relatives or charge the debt to their credit cards. So we don't know actually how much medical debt is really out there. We know it's a lot, very, very, very likely. I mean, there's just no way that it's not significantly more than $140 billion, as reported by the study in the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, a couple of years ago. And in this article, Kaiser Health News talked about the debt, and this physician was saying, you know what? Our healthcare system is almost perfectly designed to create debt. Again, he was quoting a physician affiliated with RIP Medical Debt, the nonprofit that helps people who are struggling or facing bankruptcy because of financial ruin because of medical bills. And I just wanted to share this to say again, please, please, please don't take your medical bills and put them on credit. No loans, no revolving credit, no medical credit cards, no special payment plan other than an interest-free payment plan with the facility. And I talked about in a prior show that now we have facilities that are subcontracting out, sending out their billing to these big financial for-profit corporations and credit card companies. I mean, you know, big ones, you know, household name companies. I'm not going to repeat. I'm not going to say, don't do that. Please keep it with the facility. And if they're sending it out, meaning the facility that you have a payment plan with from an old visit, from old medical care, please say, okay, you guys are turning over your systems. I have this old debt. I do not agree to have it enrolled in your new system. You got to keep, my financial agreement is with you, medical facility, ABC medical facility, not with this credit agency, credit card or financial credit agency or company, not agency, company. Now, if you use the facility going forward after they have contracted with a financial company for their billing services where they charge interest after a certain period of time, then yeah, you have no choice. But don't roll over your agreement. Always the third step of the 3 steps of the runway way to pay a medical bill. Please keep your debt with your bills, your medical bills, and the debt with them with that facility. Don't agree to roll it over to a new facility. And as much as you can, try to make a direct agreement with the facility for an interest-free payment plan that is in your budget. So the first case that I have of what would Dr. Virgie do for this week is something that was featured. I have a bunch of these and I run across that's featured in BuzzFeed, where they love going through and finding interesting stories on Reddit chats. And this is a bill that was posted by somebody in the Reddit chat called Late Stage Capitalism. And they were complaining, saying, this was the statement. They showed a picture of a bill. And of course, we know in our experience, it's not a real bill. And in this case, it's not a real bill. We don't see any CPT codes on it. We just see the charges and then what the insurance paid and then what they owe. So the person says, my ER visit bill for a sinus infection headache while in Phoenix. More than $4,500 just for going to the ER. More than $6,900 for the CT scan. More than $1,100 for a saline pack and IV. And $700 for one antibiotic pill. And they say it comes to a total of $13,475 for a 1-hour visit. Healthcare isn't an insurance issue, folks. It's a hospital pricing issue. Unquote. This is what the person says, and they show us the bill, a picture of the bill. So I wanted to point this one out. The bill came to a total, as they said, $13,475. Their insurance paid and was discounted because they were in this facility was in network. The in-network discount was more than $12,000, and then the insurance paid more than $1,000. So it left the patient with $65. The person posting in this chat, in this Reddit chat. And I want to talk about it because they were saying, oh my gosh, my insurance covered it. No, the insurance isn't the problem. It's the hospitals. That's the problem. And I wanted to point this out is because what would Dr. Virgie do in this case? Let's just cut to the chase. We all know that I would apply the 3 steps and ask for a real bill. This isn't a real bill, and we would go from there. But I wanted to point this out, particularly in addition to saying, okay, which of the 3 steps do we need to apply that didn't happen here? I wanted to point out that it actually is not a hospital pricing issue. All of the providers, anybody that takes insurance, and that's most people who are providing medical care in the United States, they're trapped in the system. So they make up these crazy numbers for their services, crazy prices like 2,000% more than what Medicare charges for the exact same service. So they can negotiate to be in network, meaning contract with insurance companies. So the provider can say, okay, we have potentially 1 million, this insurance company has 1 million people in the area. So we want potentially 1 million patients if we get on there and if we go in network with this insurance company. No, it's not a hospital pricing issue. They're trapped in it. So the healthcare system in the United States is run by insurance companies. That's what it is. And so in order to, let's cut to the chase, it's the publicly traded, meaning they're traded on Wall Street, large, very, 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 very humongous insurance companies. They're the ones that run the US healthcare system. And so, because how does it go? Who runs the world, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. That's what's going on here. The insurance companies say, hey, if you want access to our members, and we have millions of them, you're going to have to give us a deep discount. Well, so the providers make up a number for their services just to be able to get paid for the services they need. I'm sorry, get paid for the services they provide so they can keep the lights on. They need to eat. They need to get paid. They deserve to make a fair profit for their care, for their services. Well, in order to do that, they have to play the game and say, okay, how about if we give you a huge 90% discount off of our usual high rate of blah, 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 blah. Just for you, we'll give you the low, low price of blah, 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 blah. So no, I just want to point out the person in this case misunderstood. They're really upset because their insurance paid for everything except for a $65 copay, it looks like, of a 13,000, quote unquote, a 13,000 plus dollar bill. And again, Crush Medical Debt Nation members, we know that if it doesn't have a CPT code on it, it's not a real bill. It can have service codes. That's another trick a lot of the medical providers play, big systems play. They'll say, oh, service code. And it's not a CPT code. So if it doesn't say CPT, it's not a real bill. They got this made up number from the hospital and they thought, oh, my insurance paid for all of this. this craziness, the high cost from the US healthcare system is the hospital's fault. No, they're just stuck in the system. They're just playing the game. And it's not that your insurance is the good guy, dude. That's not the case. So I wanted to point that out. I was really wanting to point out that, of course, apply all 3 steps. In this case, what would Dr. Virgie do? Dr. Virgie would apply step 1, right? Ask for a real bill with CPT codes. And it's not the hospital's fault that they're trapped in this crazy system, but you have to keep the hospital honest and make sure that they don't make you a victim either. Stuff rolls downhill, right? You're not going to be a victim because they happen to be a victim and caught in this crazy for-profit US healthcare system. So that was the first case of what would Dr. Virgie do. The next case of what would Dr. Virgie do this week is somebody pointed out, again, the US healthcare system, thinking that the insurance is the good guy because they were charged this huge rate, but my insurance covered most of it. So, it's the hospitals, it's the providers, it's the doctors. No. In this case, this was also on BuzzFeed, but I can't see where they got. They got this from the Reddit chat called mildly infuriating. So they show a picture again of the summary bill, quote unquote, it says summary bill. And we know it's not a real bill. It has no CPT codes on it. And it says line item, diagnosis, procedure, and then the summary. And on top of it, the person writes, my doctor froze off a wart by spraying it with a can of liquid nitrogen. Took all of 2 minutes. It was billed as a surgery, and they billed my insurance more than $500. Total for the whole appointment was more than $800. Our healthcare system is a joke. Thank goodness my insurance covered nearly all of it. So I wanted to point this out because the person obviously is just cut to the chase. Again, did not apply the 3 steps. Most importantly, step 1 was getting a real bill with CPT codes. And actually, in this case, there's a picture. They included the description of the procedure, and it has a CPT code for the procedure. So this actually looks like part of it is a real bill. It looks like 2 separate pictures, but there is a real portion of a real bill because it has a CPT code. So it's a diagnosis, viral wart. Procedure says non-cancerous lesion destruction, and in parentheses, 17110. And even though it doesn't say CPT code on it, I know that's a CPT code. That's a CPT code for freezing off a wart, basically. But if you didn't know, you would ask for a bill and say, I want something with CPT codes on it. I don't see anything with CPT codes on it. Don't assume that it must be a CPT code just because it has a number next to the procedure. Please don't do that. Say, I need something that says CPT codes on it. I don't understand what this is. So anyway, they show this, the diagnosis, the procedure with what happens to be the CPT code number for that procedure. And they said the amount billed was $500. The member discount is being in network for this provider. They knock off more than $300 off the bill. And the insurance paid $138, leaving them with a less than $25 bill. So it's just the game that the physicians, the providers, the hospital systems, and medical care systems have to play in the US healthcare system. The good guy is not insurance just because they happen on your statement that you get, they happen to say, okay, it started out with $800 and we got you down to just 25. We're the good guys. No. Everyone's caught in this system. It is what it is. And you have to make sure that you protect yourself. Apply the 3 steps, please, to every single bill you get, no matter how big or small. Step 1, make sure it has CPT codes on it. Then say CPT across the top, call and ask for it to take it to step 2. Once you get it, meaning something with CPT codes, check to make sure that it sounds like the services you received. And while you're doing that, also check what Medicare, meaning you have to Google this, frankly, check what Medicare pays, which is the basic base fair retail price for the services, medical services in this country, see what they would pay for it. And then 3, if it's not something that you can pay off and by the end of the month, essentially, call and make a payment plan with the facility, with the provider for an interest-free payment plan that you can afford. The next case is someone complaining about an ambulance ride. So it's not just, we've talked about this in past episodes, it's not just the hospitals that the medical systems, these large medical care systems that are gouging us. Ambulance providers are there. Oh my gosh. Yeah. they do all kinds of stuff. They do some pretty egregious stuff. But this was in BuzzFeed, who was featuring somebody complaining in the Reddit chat, late stage capitalism. And they were showing a picture of the ambulance bill. Apparently this person is from Finland, and they write, let's see what they show a picture of an ambulance bill that they received, and then pulled up another ambulance bill from, I guess, from Finland, where it was like their cost in Finland was less than $25. And then with the picture they showed of the bill they got for an ambulance ride in the US, they say ambulance ride cost US versus Finland. But somehow people still claim that socialized healthcare is bad and more expensive. I can't imagine living in a world where people risk theirs or someone else's lives because of being afraid of the cost. The latter is without any insurance whatsoever. And when they say latter, they're pointing to the bill, a copy of a bill apparently from an ambulance ride in the country of Finland, which apparently has, like most industrialized countries, has basic healthcare, public healthcare. So what I wanted to point out about this is that it's not just a reminder, it's not just hospitals, emergency rooms, it's any medical provider. In a past episode, I talked about my kid's dentist trying to call up and say, hey, you owe us this. How do you want to take care of it? You want to put it on a card? You want to give me your card number? In this case, it's an ambulance service. And they're upset because they were charged more than $1,300. And like with any other medical service, any medical bill, we've got to apply the 3 steps to make sure we're not getting overcharged, make sure we don't overpay. The next case is, I don't mean to laugh, but the title of their chat is Appendicitis Sucks in America. So this person shows a copy of their bill where apparently they had to have an emergency appendectomy. Their appendix had to be removed. And they show, of course, bills totaling. They're upset because I think they're pointing to the fact that the total charges that the hospital system sent their insurance was more than $55,000. And basically, there's a line item in all of these statements. Remember, they're not bills because they don't have CPT codes on it. This does not have a CPT code on it, so it's not a real bill. And this one, there's a line item that usually comes under total charges, that crazy number that they just make up, in this case, 55,000. What under that, in these non-bills and these statements that don't have CPT codes on it, what you usually see if you have insurance, there's a line underneath that they describe as payments slash adjustments. And what that is, you didn't pay anything. What they're saying is that's the discount that was given by your insurance, plus minus any insurance money that I should say payments they receive from the insurance. So they combine it into one line, into one number. The discount that they get for being part of being in network, meaning contracting to accept whatever the insurance company pays as payment in full. Of course, not counting, if you haven't met your deductible for the year yet, and not counting any co-insurance and co-pays. So payments slash adjustments under total charges $55,000, payment slash adjustments underneath the second line, more than $43,000. And they say, what you, I can't even get it out. The third line says, what you owe now. So that is more than $11,000. And that's what they're upset about. And what would Dr. Virgie do in this case? We would go straight to step one, right? A lot of these problems with getting overcharged with these huge, crazy, what I call wish lists. They're wishing and hoping and praying they'll fall for it. These aren't medical bills. These aren't real bills. A lot of this nonsense can be addressed if you just do step one and call and ask for, quote, something with CPT codes, unquote. And if you get pushback, if they say, when you call the patient accounts or billing department of the medical center where you had, in this case, emergency appendix surgery, you had your appendix taken out, and most appendixes are taken out emergently, right? This is one of those things. It's just life. When your appendix gets inflamed and needs to come out, it's not something that kind of creeps up on you over time. It just tends to be emergent, tends to sneak up on you. So you're going to protect yourself and apply all three steps and say, I don't know what this magic number that you want it from me, this made up number, this, you're wishing and hoping and praying I'll fall for it. No, I need a real bill. I need something, quote, I need something with CPT codes, unquote. And that takes care of a lot. That's step one, man. It takes care of a lot of nonsense, really. And again, just a reminder, there are zero insurance companies, zero, that will take a bill from, or it's called a claim when it's sent to an insurance company. A bill from a provider is sent to an insurance company. It's called a claim. There is no insurance company that is going to take a quote unquote claim that has no CPT codes on it. If it doesn't have CPT codes on it, it's not a claim. And the insurance company will be like, well, I don't know what this is, but we're not paying anything that doesn't have CPT codes on it. Again, CPT codes are to medical services, what barcodes are to products in a retail store. They're not going to pay for it if there's no barcode on it. The insurance company is not going to pay for any medical service that doesn't have the recognized barcode on it, which are CPT codes. It's just not going to happen. So why do we, meaning the American patient, the American public, why do 9 times out of 10 we get sent different statements than what gets sent to be for requesting payment to the payers, the insurance companies? Because we fall for it. 99.9% of us doesn't know any better, doesn't know that we're being tricked. And these are made up numbers and they're hoping we'll fall for it. So yeah, let's apply the 3 steps, particularly step 1, that gets rid of a lot of craziness. When you call them and say, hey, I need something with CPT codes on it. If they give you any pushback and say, well, we don't have that kind of bill here, then you're gonna have to say, well, yeah, who can I speak with? Who can give me something, quote, who can give me something with CPT codes as per HIPAA federal law? And HIPAA is something that people think of as has to do with privacy. And that was actually a side piece of the law. The law is actually Health Insurance Portability and Accessibility Act. And that means whatever is generated in regards to your care whether it's your medical records, your medical bills, the bills that get sent to somebody else, meaning to pay for it, like the insurance companies, or they get sent to you. Anything that's generated around your care belongs to you. And you have the right to it. Even if you owe the money, the facility money, you you have the right to that information. They can charge you a fair rate to like make copies of the records, but a reasonable rate for copying. They can't charge you like $100, just to get your records. That's all yours. It is by federal law, your civil right to own all of the information related to all of your medical care. And that includes the bills. And there's no, the reason why HIPAA, mentioning the word HIPAA really changes things, is that there's no medical facility or hospital or provider in the country that wants to catch a case for violating your HIPAA civil rights. So that's what Dr. Virgie would do if I had a bill that, or I should say, right, not a bill. This is a statement. It doesn't have CPT codes on it, so it's not a real bill. If I had a statement from getting an emergency appendectomy, getting my my appendix removed emergently, and I got this statement saying that I owe $11,000 of the $55,000 bill with no CPT codes on it, I would call and say, okay, step one, give me my CPT codes, give me a real bill, give me something with CPT codes on it so I can Google every code that's on that real bill to make sure I received the services. And 3, then I'll say, okay, this is what Medicare pays for it from step 2, what I Googled from the services I received, the fair retail price, basic retail price. So this is what I am willing and able to pay. And that's what Dr. Virgie would do.